Welcome. Today, we're going to take a quick tour through the United States of America. We'll look at everything from its massive landscape to the people who call it home, breaking down the key building blocks that make the country what it is. So let's start with just how huge this place is. The United States stretches over 3,000 miles from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the Pacific. To really get a feel for that, imagine getting in a car and driving for days, and you'd still be in the same country. This sheer size is so important to understanding everything else. And because the country is so massive, it has just about every kind of environment you can think of. Out west, you've got these incredible, towering mountains capped with snow. Move toward the middle and it opens up into these huge, flat plains that are perfect for farming. Then you go southwest and bam, you're in a scorching hot desert. And of course, along the edges, there are warm, humid coasts and even tropical islands. So your experience of the US can be totally different depending on where you land. Now, all this amazing geography, it's not just pretty scenery. It has a huge impact on, well, everything, from the weather to the culture. So let's zoom in a little closer on the land itself. The climate changes just as dramatically as the landscape. While the northern states are dealing with freezing winters and tons of snow, the southern states have warm weather pretty much all year round, with some spots feeling humid and tropical. It's wild to think that on the very same day, some Americans could be out skiing while others are hanging out at the beach. The whole country is really defined by a few giant features. You've got the Rocky Mountains, this massive mountain range in the west. In the center, you have the Great Plains, these huge grasslands that basically act as the nation's breadbasket. And of course, there are powerful rivers like the Mississippi that carve right through the country, acting as super important highways for trade and travel. With so many of these incredible natural wonders, the U.S. actually came up with a new idea to protect them, which brings up a great trivia question. Any idea what the very first national park in the entire world was? And the answer is Yellowstone National Park, which was created way back in 1872. It's famous for its geysers, like Old Faithful, and all its amazing wildlife, like bison and bears. You know, creating Yellowstone literally started a worldwide movement to protect special natural places, and today there are over 60 national parks just in the U.S. Okay, so we've got this stage set, right? We've looked at the land. Now let's get into the history of the nation that was actually built on it. The story of the modern United States really gets going in the 1600s when English settlers started building colonies on the East Coast. For about 150 years, these colonies grew and developed. But by 1776, things got really tense with Great Britain, and it all led to the colonies declaring their independence and fighting the Revolutionary War to make it happen. So why the huge breakup? Well, the colonists felt it was totally unfair to be ruled and taxed by a government that was a whole ocean away, especially since they didn't have anyone representing them. This one big idea, that people should have a say in your own government, was the spark that lit the fire for independence. So after winning the war, the founders of the U.S. had an even bigger job ahead of them. How do you build a whole new government? They had to create something that would protect people's rights without becoming too powerful, like the one they had just fought against. What they came up with was a government with 3 separate parts. You can think of it like a 3-legged stool. Each leg is just as important as the others. First, you have the legislative branch, or Congress, and their job is to write the laws. Then there's the executive branch, led by the president, who makes sure those laws are actually carried out. And finally, you have the judicial branch, the court system, which makes sure the laws are being applied fairly. Now, the real genius of this whole setup is a concept called checks and balances. Basically, each branch has the ability to limit the power of the other two. For instance, Congress can pass a law, but the president can say nope and veto it. But then, if Congress gets enough votes, they can override that veto. It's this constant push and pull that makes sure no single part of the government gets too powerful and forces them all to work together. So we've got the land and we've got the system of government. But what's it all mean for the millions of people who actually live in the U.S. today? Let's take a look at how different life can be across this huge country. As you'd probably guess, daily life can look completely different from one place to the next. In a crowded city like New York, life is super fast-paced, full of skyscrapers, with everyone relying on subways and buses. But then you go out to the Midwest, and it's a totally different world. Life is a bit slower, centered around farming on these massive, wide-open fields. The American economy is the biggest in the world, and it's built on a lot of different things.
You've got the tech industry, a lot of it in places like Silicon Valley, making all the software and computers we use. Then there's manufacturing, building everything from cars to airplanes. And then there's the service industry, which is huge. That's things like healthcare, banking, and entertainment, and it's where most Americans work.
But even with all these differences, there are things that connect people across the country. Holidays like Thanksgiving and the 4th of July bring everyone together. A huge love for sports like football and baseball is something millions of people share. And you can't forget the music. Styles like jazz, rock, and country that were born in the US are heard everywhere, kind of like a national soundtrack. So, from its enormous landscapes to its incredibly diverse people, the United States is really a nation of contrasts. And that brings up a really big question. In a country with so many differences, what is it that really unites everyone? That's a great top to end on. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.